One of the suspects in the alleged plot to attack last weekend's White House UFC event is in a Kansas City courtroom right now. Daniel Eskridge has been charged with conspiracy to commit murder on White House grounds. Eskridge allegedly sent out this photograph of tactical equipment with the message, "The First Amendment isn't working." And the feds say he spelled out his plans in a message, quote, "The goal here is to get at least 3 trigger event ops, fully planned and manned, and to the best of our ability, have them executed on the same day or in rapid succession so that our message is undeniably clear to our illegitimate government and our fellow Americans that we are waging a war," end quote. He's one of the 5 suspects who have been arrested so far. We're led to believe there could be many more as part of this. And this group includes the alleged ringleader, who authorities say is an illegal immigrant. Investigators say illegal immigrant Abraham Alvarez was responsible for planning, organizing, and directing the attack through an encrypted group chat. And prosecutors say Alvarez directed his co-conspirators to rig explosive drones, quote, "as many and as deadly as we can get." The Department of Justice is releasing more information on a 3rd suspect, Michael Allen Thomas, while searching his California home. Agents have found, quote, a hunting rifle, an AR-style rifle, 30-round extended magazines for the AR style, filled with approximately 180 rounds of ammunition, and a pistol. Additionally, Thomas spoke with law enforcement and admitted to helping plan the attack and encouraging others to take part in it. Emily, this was intricate, planned out, and apparently involved a lot of people.
And note the language. So the illegitimate government. Where does someone get that from? We know exactly where they get it from. That rhetoric has been fomented on the internet and by our elected officials. Look at the leaders of the Democrat Party who call this president an illegitimate president, who says the occupant, the occupier of the White House. I mean, we've heard this language come from sitting elected officials that say essentially and excuse the fact that they say there's the Hitler at the head of this country and excuse this violence. And after multiple assassination attempts, and successful one with Charlie Kirk, for example, we have a little bit of a hey, let's soften this. But how many more of these do the brave men and women of the FBI and DOJ have to thwart before this lesson is learned for real? These teenagers are getting this language about the elites, the corporate elites, and the billionaires and the oligarchs and the no kings and everything. I mean, we have sitting senators that are going on tour about this language, and then we wonder where they get it from. This is absolutely frightening, and don't overestimate or underestimate those podcasts with a lot of reach that are trafficking in this extremism for a monetary value to them that all of these kids are just lapping up and clickbaiting.
So, Molly, hearing Emily mention where we're seeing some of this and hearing some of it, it's on the stump. So not only is there a fomenting of this assassination culture talk, they're actually trying to put people in office who are talking that way. People, maybe some guy with a Nazi tattoo. I mean, a whole lot going on, and it's not even behind the scenes politically.
Yeah, one of the suspects in this case mentioned a specific U.S. senator as being someone that they would be targeting because she had taken money from the pro-Israel lobby. So that's another vein in this. Anti-Israel, anti-Israeli money, anti-Israel influence in the United States politics. And honestly, this particular crew spoke about really just wacky conspiracy theories as well, tied into Epstein and the fallout over the Epstein files, and, you know, really bizarre things related to, you know, the blood of infants, just very deep, strange, bizarre conspiracy theories. And as aspirational and fantastical as their efforts and gathering was online, they were able to get weapons. They were able to plot and get maps and create really quite a drastic scenario and give the FBI not a whole lot of time to crack down on this. But thankfully, a mother came forward and had heard things that her son had said. And one thing led to another, and they were able to arrest about 5 people. But the thing that's most concerning is that there are some roughly 19 or 20 folks that were on these chats that the people had drawn together to have these conversations about.
And it took one brave mom to speak up. And I say brave, I mean, there's a monster in her life, potentially. So, I mean, she was being brave. I was at that event. There was no mention of this. There was no way for us to know what was going on. So a huge thank you to everybody who kept 4,000 people at the UFC event at the White House safe?
I want to take a quick right turn and talk about what's more troubling than all of the other rhetoric and things that are inciting all of this, and that is the ability for these types of microcells to exist. In years past, when we thought about terrorism, we thought about large organizations, putting that pressure on us. Now we have, with technology, with the affordability of drones, with the affordability of other weapons, these small microcells, these folks here, they're everywhere. And I think that's probably more to celebrate that they were stopped, but a lot scarier to know how difficult that is to defend.
And think about what's been written about this, Kayleigh, that the plan was to shoot people after they've been evacuated. Like on the way out, they were going to. We had so much military there. I mean, there were units from all around. It was packed with some of our finest leaders. Many of them are in the Gulf right now. Some of them are stateside, too. And then you just had people with their families who had gone. You had so many different avenues in society, patriots there.
It is horrific, especially considering the many events that are planned in Washington, D.C. for this 4th of July and how many tens of thousands of Americans are planning to attend those. I have to say, as a resident down there myself, I am legitimately alarmed and concerned by this, considering that many of these alleged perpetrators are still out there and haven't yet been detained or arrested. I do want to note one fact that we've learned from the Department of Homeland Security about the alleged ringleader, Alvarez. He was granted DACA. He was a part of the DACA program. He was granted deportation relief through that program back in 2014. So I actually think that there's an important immigration angle here. Because between this, it just seems unthinkable how betrayed the American people have been by both the Obama administration's immigration policy and by the wide open door at our southern border propagated by the Biden administration. And it seems as if every single act of charity has been spat right back in our faces, whether it was this guy or whether it's the Somali migrants in Minnesota who are fleecing taxpayers, or whether it's Mahmoud Khalil, who uses his position of privilege in this country to foment hatred and unrest. We have been betrayed as a country by being forced to share our country with potentially tens of thousands of people who hate us. Something has to change. There has to be a political price for it.
All right. Quick last word. I saw you looking down.
No, I'm just troubled by all of it. And I do worry if we have the infrastructure. And when I think about all this budget nonsense that's gone on over the year and the DHS, we're not going to fund it. Those types of things make you vulnerable. And I saw your pictures when you were on the lawn. And now to hear about the fear that you didn't know you should have had is troubling. Because if there's something had broken out, I want to give you a hug because I don't know what would have happened.
A hug right back at you.
I don't know what would have happened.
God bless. God bless us.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.